sick and tired of this. I'm not lying to people about what's going on here. Bottle fed one of them, and now it's a mother cow out there. This is a small community, 1,800 people. They know what I'm doing before I know what I'm doing in this town. When I first moved here, I went into my wife went in and set up our mailbox at the post office. I went in and I had one of the yellow tickets they give you when you have a parcel that you need to pick up, and there's nothing on it. It doesn't have the box number, it doesn't have what I'm supposed to pick up or anything, and I'm like, oh, what the heck is this? I walk into the office with this thing in my hand. The gal goes, oh, I've got your mail right here, picks it up, hands it to me, and I'm looking at it, and it's my mail.
Meet Don Gittleson. A rancher based in the small town of Walden, Colorado, he and his wife have been raising cattle at their ranch for years. Here in the park, the community has become close-knit, a place where neighbors support neighbors. The community met Don's family with open arms, and ever since, they and their cattle have been established members of the park.
And my wife goes, how'd they know it was yours? And I said, I think because they knew they had somebody new in town.
You're the only new guy.
Yeah, I'm the only guy they don't recognize.
Yep.
But despite the community's warm welcome, the Gittlesons soon learned that some anticipated neighbors would quickly cause trouble for their business.
When I was down there, something came in from below, I think, and spooked them.
Wolves that migrated down from their place of original introduction in Wyoming made the surrounding forest of Don's ranch their home and several of his cattle their food source. Unable to shoot the wolves due to Colorado law, Don and his family have spent over $70,000 and counting on alternative methods to deter the wolves from their cattle.
Jackson County rancher is trying a new method to keep wolves away from his cattle after 2 attacks in just 2 days. This new temporary electric fence is how he will fight back against the wolf pack to prevent future attacks.
Following the electric fence's failure to prevent the attacks, Don has resorted to a rotation of other methods, including fox lights, cowbells, guard donkeys, and even partnering with Karen Vardaman, a member of the Working Circle and committed wolf advocate, to work alongside him on a night watch operation designed to protect his cattle.
So one of the reasons that Karen isn't here anymore, or the main reason, is she wasn't always honest. And when we would lose something, and of course I get called from newspapers and that one, no, and they go, well, didn't the Working Circle there, didn't they have people out there watching the cows? And I go, yep. And they go, and they came in and killed something anyway? And I go, yep.
All methods were eventually unsuccessful. During the time Karen was involved in night watch at Don's ranch, a total of 3 cattle were killed. Don's losses to local wolf populations have been met with little compensation from the Department of Wildlife, leaving many to suspect the department holds few regards towards affected parties. The Gittlesons' experience with wolf advocates in the press have placed a sour taste in the mouths of many.
So she asked me to stop telling people what all was going on here. And I said, Karen, I'm not going to lie to people. I said, if it works, I'll tell them it works, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to say it doesn't work. I said, you're not going to fix a problem by lying about what works or doesn't work. And she said, well, this is going to have a big impact on, my livelihood and that. Well, I just realized that I don't mean it to be that way, but I'm not going to tell people something is working when it doesn't work. So when that didn't work, she had somebody from one of the other organizations contact me and start that way, and wanted to help me talk to the press. And I said, that's fine. And I called her because I knew where it came from. And I called her and I said, Karen, I said, if the Cattlemen's Association, I said, they already have, when they call me and want to help me talk to the press, I tell them, no, thank you. I said, nobody's going to tell me what to say or not say. I said, I'm not going to play an agenda.
In October of 2022, my mother-in-law found the pack of 6 wolves in with our roping cattle, and she honked her horn or did whatever she did with her pickup to keep them away from the cattle. The next day, my husband went up and the wolves had the cattle cornered against the fence, and he stayed there and protected the cattle. My father-in-law went up and found one of his calves not acting right, and then found one of our calves with blood dripping down his back leg, but he couldn't get close enough to him. Then we called the DOW and went through that whole process.
While Mandy's story with wolf advocates has been a kinder one, she continues to not be adequately reimbursed for her losses by associated organizations pushing for wolf reintroduction. Upon questioning groups to find answers, she has been met with little communication.
It seemed like nobody wanted to give answers, and they would wait and take forever to get anything back. You don't even feel safe in your own yard anymore.
Mandy and Dawn's stories are only a few examples of wolf attacks on ranchers' property. This battle between ranchers wishing to save their livestock and wolf advocates campaigning for reintroduction became especially prevalent in the 1900s. In response to reported wolf attacks, the government implemented substantial predator control programs that coupled with the usage of bounties to eliminate wolves from the area. In the end, only a fraction of the wolf populations that previously inhabited the United States were left in large wild areas, and by 1978, all gray wolves in America were listed as endangered. These programs formed a new societal custom for those living in these regions to shoot wolves on sight.
Aldo Leopold is a fellow well worth reading. When he was a young man, he had the idea that the reason deer should exist is so that we can go out there and hunt them as humans. And the reason that wolves exist is that they eat the deer. And so maybe we should get rid of all the wolves because that gives us more deer for us to go out and hunt. And so he thought that a deer paradise would have no wolves in it.
Aldo Leopold was initially one such subscriber to this custom. As a successful game hunter, Leopold himself shot multiple wolves in his youth. But while observing deer grazing in the Arizona and New Mexico plateaus in the early 1900s, Aldo wrote, I now suspect that just as a deer herd lives in mortal fear of its wolves, so does a mountain live in mortal fear of its deer.
But then he later learned that without a better balance among these different organisms in the forest, that might not be anybody's paradise, because if you get too many deer, then they degrade the vegetation. With poor vegetation, the future of the deer population is not so good.
Predators are going to keep the prey numbers such that there's not excessive effects on the plant communities.
And so that led some people to think that, well, if we hadn't done in all those predators, maybe the deer population never would have exploded. And so Aldo Leopold popularized this story about predator control led to an explosion of the deer population, and that led to degradation of the habitat, which was not good for the deer in the long run. So the basic idea is that Leopold was trying to get us to understand that predators probably have an important role in ecosystems.
There's an old Native American saying that goes, in all our deliberations, we must take into account the well-being of the seventh generation to follow. The wisdom of those words has come alive to me during my family's Wyoming vacation. During the past week and a half, Chelsea, Hillary, and I have been vacationing in two of our nation's most spectacular national treasures, Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Parks. We've been hiking, horseback riding, rafting on the Snake River. We've seen Old Faithful, the Canyon Falls, and the young wolves that are being reintroduced into Yellowstone.
In 1995, President Clinton, alongside the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, brought 14 wolves to Yellowstone. The wolves were kept in acclimation pens for several weeks to keep their homing instincts from leading them back to Jasper National Park in Canada, where they had been captured from. Some of the most popular pens used were the Crystal Creek pen, the Nez Perce pen, and the Blacktail pen. But soon enough, the wolves were allowed to leave their pens. Their migration, eating habits, and other behaviors were continually observable by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service officials using tracking collars placed on the wolves.
Well, the collaring is kind of our most important event every year. All our studies are based upon having marked wolves. So our objective in the park is to keep collars in each pack. We dart them, so we fly up to them and shoot a dart gun, and a dart flies in them and sedates them. And then we put the collar that we can track on them. Okay, it's a pup, so it could grow. It won't grow as much as a male pup. We also take a lot of measurements. The full processing includes putting a collar on, taking a blood sample so we can determine its condition, what diseases it's been exposed to, its genetics, because we have a full pedigree that we're working on. Then we weigh it, 39.1. We take measurements, tooth measurements, paw size, length, and width. So we do a full workup on these guys. And that's what we do with every wolf we've caught.
Wolf researchers like Doug Smith have helped to both reintegrate wolves and also make major contributions to the study of wolf behavior. Our understanding of how wolves migrate is largely thanks to people like him who have tracked the Yellowstone wolf's migration through Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. The success of wolf reintroduction in Wyoming has led wolf ecotourism in Yellowstone to bring in $35 million annually.
2, 3.
The success story of the Yellowstone wolves created a new pro-wolf movement which caught the attention of tourists across the nation, and in particular, a Colorado woman named Darlene.
Hi, my name's Darlene. I'm the founder of Colorado Wolf and Wildlife Center. And as you can see, I've got 2 wonderful wolves here with me, and I love wolves.
After rescuing a wolf dog at a young age, Darlene created a wolf dog rescue center where people were able to surrender their animals. The Hayman fire forced Darlene and her animals into a sudden evacuation, and soon after she began the construction of the Colorado Wolf and Wildlife Center. On June 28, 2003, Colorado Wolf and Wildlife Center held its official grand opening and has worked towards housing wolves and educating visitors who visit the sanctuary ever since.
What does wolf mean to you?
Friend. We are big on education. That's why we do our tours. We want to show and teach everyone how wolves are misunderstood entirely.
Good job. You're dancing. The wolf tango. Salsa. How about the wolf tango?
Wolf. Wolf means beauty, compassion, leadership. They're just wonderful and amazing creatures.
They help to stabilize populations. So probably have already heard of the term, but they're what are known as a keystone species. And they affect everything below them. So if they are taken out of an ecosystem, that ecosystem collapses and it will just get destroyed and it won't do very well once it's gone. So if wolves are healthy, everything else in the ecosystem is generally going to be thriving because they are that keystone that keeps the whole bridge in check. And so, we've seen it in Yellowstone. When you remove wolves from the population, from the ecosystem, I should say, you just see everything start to fall apart. It really became a desert over there. When we put wolves back in, we saw over 350 plant and animal species return to the park. It became a beautiful, thriving ecosystem once again, mostly due to the wolf, and they're so important, not only for their own numbers, but for, the health and the balance of every other living thing out there. The relationships that we get to form with the animals is just, it's such an opportunity to be able to see them for who they are, and, they really get to know you, and you form such a close bond. These creatures are so socially oriented. Family means everything to them, and so to really be a part of their family, to where they get excited to see you and they give you all of their love in return, is just so beautiful. You leave for a couple weeks and they really have missed you. It's such a wonderful feeling to have that relationship with one of these, intelligent animals.
Just like you see right now, obviously they're not going to try and eat me. And if I was actually bleeding, they had accidentally given me a kiss too hard and split my lip, it'll all be okay.
Wolf kisses, of course, are another plus. I always say I get paid in wolf kisses. Very special experience. They have very fresh breath too, so it's not bad. It's actually quite nice.
The Colorado Wolf and Wildlife Center and other similar organizations have helped to educate the public about wolves, but it's most notably sparked an excitement about the facts surrounding their reintroduction. Many have taken advantage of this excitement by spreading misinformation targeting the media presence the pro-wolf debate has gathered. The channel Sustainable Human posted what is arguably one of the most well-known pieces of media tackling wolves to date. The video, which is a short excerpt from the speaker George Monbiot's 2013 TED Talk, has now gained over 44 million views on YouTube.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion. The channels narrowed. More pools formed. More riffle sections, all of which were great for wildlife habitats. The rivers changed in response to the wolves.
The widespread fame of this video placed it in the hands of many young people and adults alike who widely took Monbiot's word as fact. How Wolves Change Rivers soon became a generation's understanding of wolves' impact on the ecosystem.
I'm sure you've seen that ridiculous video called Wolves Change Rivers, and it's just a bunch of junk. There's not a true statement in it. 20 years ago, this was an attractive idea that should have been scrutinized and held up to scientific scrutiny, and it was. The idea was you reintroduced wolves. The wolves scared the elk to death. They were so frightened that they wouldn't feed in what they call risky areas. And so they wouldn't feed in aspen. They wouldn't feed in willows because they couldn't see where the wolves were. And this got promoted as scientific fact. Well, when you take a close look at it, there's about 1 hour or two during the day when wolf packs are actively hunting that it affects where the elk feed. One of the things we learned in Yellowstone is that the intake of plants has not changed since the wolves were reintroduced. And the reason for that is because the bison population has gone up as the elk population has gone down. And so the total kilograms of ungulate biomass of large herbivores eating plants has stayed about the same.
If we had a little concept like succession leads to climax forest or something, that'd be really powerful. But it turns out those wishful thoughts about how simple things ought to be just don't map well onto the real world.
And perhaps this is the most important thing that rewilding offers us, the most important thing that's missing from our lives: hope. In motivating people to love and defend the natural world, an ounce of hope is worth a ton of despair.
So while Leopold was correct that predators are a necessary part of an ecosystem, filling in one missing piece is not the end-all answer to the problem the natural world faces.
You can see that in time, the wolf and elk populations, one goes up, the other goes down, but that doesn't prove that one caused the other. The elk population could come down because human hunters happened to go up at the same time the wolves showed up. It could be because grizzly bears started eating more elk than they ate before. Even so, we don't want to be sure that wolves cause something. And in science, that's called a correlation, which does not prove what causes things. It just shows there's been an association. And so that's why we need a lot of careful thinking and experimentation to establish cause and effect.
It's easy for media sources following the excitement pro-wolf debates have sparked with false cause and effect statistics to gain support, but the reality is that wolf reintroduction is not as simple as a car crash.
time to protect ourselves and our property and live like we're not in jail anymore.
They're not the big bad wolf that a lot of people say and think that they are.
You know, taking off my scientist hat and just putting on my citizen hat, I think it's fabulous. I can't wait to hear a wolf howl in Colorado. Decades of study in ecology says that, you know, intact ecosystems that have all of the parts function better than ecosystems for which some of the parts have been removed.
I like the idea of having wolves back in Colorado personally, but I'm not a rancher. I don't depend on having baby calves survive in the springtime out there and when the snow comes and the wolves are howling.
Do everything we can to be a voice for these animals, and that's, you know, a big part of what we do here every day.
It's just a matter of time before someone's gonna get hurt from these that aren't scared of people. A man here who came to do an interaction with our animals. He went into a wolf enclosure and he had disclosed to the staff members beforehand that he had hunted wolves before, which is scary to us to, you know, allow that person to come in and form that relationship. But that's what is so important here, is that, you know, we want to take that opportunity to teach and to have people learn. And that man cried during his interaction. And was so touched by the wolves, he walked out of that enclosure and said, I will never do that again. I will never lay my hand on one of those animals. I have been changed.